Back in New Zealand again. Number 10, it's a crime to deface a banknote. Under the Reserve Bank of New Zealand Act 1989, it's a crime to willfully deface, disfigure, or mutate banknotes. Any person who breaks this law will face a fine up to $1,000. The idea of the law is to try and preserve paper money. In 2000, filmmaker Taika Waititi broke the law when he painted money as a part of an art project. Number 9, New Zealand will deny residency visas if a person's BMI is too high. The New Zealand Immigration Services require migrants to undergo a complete medical examination. This includes a body mass index test, or a BMI test. There have been cases where New Zealand has denied immigration to those who do not have a healthy BMI. Our country has an obesity problem, and New Zealand is among the top 3 fattest countries in the world. The law was put in place for budgetary reasons. A spokesman for New Zealand's Immigration Services said NZ's healthcare system can't afford to have more overweight people in the country. Number 8, the authorities can legally confiscate your land. Auckland landowners should keep a strict eye on their land. If your land is near the Waitemata to Manukau Harbour Canal, the authorities have the right to confiscate it. This is under the 1908 Auckland and Manukau Canal Act. It can take the land from time to time, whether within or without the limits of its jurisdiction. Number 7, atomic energy laws. The 1945 Atomic Energy Act requires anyone who finds uranium in New Zealand to report it to the government within 3 months. You have to report where you found the uranium also. Failing to comply is a criminal offense. Also, every high school in the country is allowed to have 1 pound of uranium and 1 pound of thorium for conducting experiments. But if there's ever a nuclear explosion, schools will have to pay a $1 million fine. Number 6, the Wanganui River has the rights of a living person. After being officially confirmed under New Zealand law, the Wanganui River has the exact same rights as a human being. The local Maori tribe has fought for the recognition of their river for 140 years. In a world first, the river has a legal personality with all the rights and liabilities as an actual person. Harming or abusing the river is no different to harming the tribe or any other New Zealander. They're one in the same. It's a unique status that recognizes the significance of the river to the region's people. So whether you've got uranium in the shed or some land in the Waitemata to Manukau Harbour area you'd like to keep hold of, watch out for New Zealand's odd laws. Number 5, wearing a disguise. In New Zealand, it is illegal to wear a mask or any face covering with the intent to disguise your identity in a way that would be likely to intimidate, threaten, or offend others. This law is primarily aimed at preventing crime or disorderly behavior. The law regarding wearing disguises in New Zealand is primarily covered under the Crimes Act 1961. It was established to address situations where individuals intentionally conceal their identity to intimidate, threaten, or offend others. The law aims to maintain public order and prevent the use of disguises for criminal activities such as robbery or harassment. Number 4, selling or distributing fireworks. While fireworks are often associated with celebrations, in New Zealand it is generally illegal for individuals to sell or distribute fireworks. However, there are certain exceptions, such as public fireworks displays authorized by the local authorities. The restrictions on selling or distributing fireworks in New Zealand are governed by the Hazardous Substances and New Organisms Act 1996 and the Fireworks Regulation 2001. These regulations were introduced to ensure public safety and reduce the risk of accidents or injuries caused by unregulated use of fireworks. The law allows for authorized public displays to take place under controlled conditions, but generally prohibits the sale or distribution of fireworks to individuals. Number 3, noisy footwear. In New Zealand, it is against the law to wear noisy footwear in public places with the intention of annoying or offending others. While not specifically defined, this law is aimed at preventing people from intentionally wearing footwear that creates excessive noise in public areas. The noisy footwear law falls under the Summary Offences Act 1981. It was established to address situations where individuals deliberately wear footwear that creates excessive noise in public places to annoy or offend others. The law aims to maintain public peace and prevent disturbances caused by intentional noise-making in public areas. Number 2, forbidden to publish information about court proceedings. In some cases, it is illegal to publish or broadcast details about court proceedings in New Zealand. This law aims to protect the privacy and reputation of individuals involved in court cases, especially in cases where there are name suppression orders or other legal restrictions. The restrictions on publishing information about court proceedings in New Zealand are primarily governed by the Criminal Procedure Act in 2011 and the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990. These laws aim to balance the principles of open justice and the right to a fair trial with the protection of individuals' privacy and reputations. They allow for certain restrictions, such as name suppression orders, to be imposed on specific cases to protect the interests of the parties involved. Number 1, restrictions on possessing offensive weapons. New Zealand has strict laws regarding the possession of offensive weapons. It is illegal to possess, carry, or use weapons such as flick knives, knuckle dusters, or tasers without a lawful purpose or proper authorization. The laws regarding offensive weapons in New Zealand are covered under the Arms Act 1983. These laws were established to regulate the possession, use, and distribution of weapons that have a higher potential for harm or misuse. The aim is to maintain public safety and reduce the violent incidents involving offensive weapons. I've always wanted to visit India, but if I do, I'll make sure to refer to this list. Number 10, flying a kite. No, that's not a euphemism. Get your mind out of the gutter. The majority of people enjoy flying kites, especially during Makar Sankranti, but without a license, flying a kite is prohibited in India. You require a license to operate an aircraft according to the Indian Aircraft Act 1934. Any machine that may derive support in the atmosphere from reaction of the air, including balloons, airships, kites, gliders, and flying machines as defined by the Act, is considered to be an aircraft. Negligent kite flying is punishable by up to a $10,000 fine or a 2-year prison sentence. Number 9, littering. In India, littering is a widespread problem that almost everyone has participated in at some point. Throwing a bottle after drinking water or a chocolate wrapper while eating could count as minor examples. According to Section 278 of the Indian Penal Code, or the IPC, littering is prohibited and is considered a health hazard. In India, a person who is caught littering in a public area may be fined up to $500. And if you want my opinion, I think you should bump the fine up, because what's stopping you? Number 8, spitting in public. A typical sight on Indian roadways is people spitting in the open, particularly those who chew tobacco or betel leaf. The outbreak caused the Union Home Ministry to make spitting a serious offense under the stringent Disaster Management Act, even though it was previously unlawful under municipal legislation in the majority of towns. Spitting in public is punishable by up to a year in prison, a fine, or both, according to Section 51B of the Disaster Management Act. Number 7, buying licks in Maharashtra. The only state in India that mandates a permission in order to own, consume, or transport beverages is Maharashtra. It allows you to store 12 units of drinks and consume them privately. It is only available to those who are over the age of 25, 21 for beer or wine. Without a permit, transporting beverages is punished by a $50,000 fine or up to 5 years in jail. In Maharashtra, India, chewing gum is actually also prohibited for both personal use and commercial selling. This law was put into place to keep public spaces clean and prevent people from smearing gum on walls, pavements, and other surfaces. This may seem like a drastic measure, but it has actually led to less chewing gum trash throughout the state. In fact, a few individuals have noted that the ban has raised demand in mints and mouthwash as alternatives. However, it is still only a specific rule in Maharashtra at this time. The chewing gum ban has sparked some discussion about the balance between individual rights and the greater good. Number 6, loud music. We frequently play music at weddings or parties without considering how it might be hurting those nearby. In accordance with Right to Life Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, every citizen has the right to a decent environment, right to live peacefully, right to sleep at night, and a right to have leisure, which are all necessary ingredients for the right to life. The Supreme Court of India ruled in 2005 that loudspeakers could not be used between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Playing loud music during this time can result in a fine of 1 lakh rupees or 5 years in prison. Number 5, no Bob Marley. To prevent the dissemination of certain publications harmful to young persons, the law was put into effect. A publication that tends to corrupt a young person by depicting violence or cruelty or incidents of a repulsive or horrible nature is harmful. Words like revolting and dreadful in the opinion of many are vague and subject to arbitrary interpretation and consequently lead to widespread discretion and serve as an excuse for harassment. For instance, police in the southern state of Kerala conducted raids on stores selling Bob Marley t-shirts on the justification that they encouraged children to consume this wonderful leafy green. Store owners were prosecuted with violating the law. Number 4. No letters. According to the statute, only the federal government has the exclusive privilege of conveying by post from one place to another, for the majority of letters. Several exceptions exist, one of which is particularly strange. Letters sent by a private friend in his way, journey, or travel to be delivered by him to the person to whom they are directed without hire, reward, or other profit or advantages for receiving, carrying, or delivering them. This legislation is broken by India's flourishing courier sector, which sends documents instead of letters. Number 3. Don't collect salt. The law imposes a cess on salt producers at a rate of 14 paisa, or 2 cents, per 40 kilograms on every salt produced in a private or state-owned salt mill. This tax is levied for unique administrative costs. A legislation places a marginal tax on salt, but it is expensive to collect. After deducting the cost of collection, the revenues are used to pay for labor, welfare, research, and salt-making costs. The tax generated $538,000 in revenue in 2013 to 14. Which was over half of the cost of collecting it. According to the Delhi-based Center for Civil Society, the removal of this act and tax will have minimal impact on the government's budget because receipts are so low. A 1978 High-Level Salt Enquiry Committee's recommendation to abolish the tax was based on the fact that its annual collection was very small and that its entire cost of collection was greater than half of its total revenue. The recommendation has not yet been made. Although private businesses in India generate 92% of the country's salt, the Indian Salt Service, which has 800 people working for it, controls the salt trade. Number 2. Don't collect treasure. Treasure is precisely defined in the law as anything of any value hidden in the soil, and is only worth 10 rupees, 16 cents, or 10 pence. According to the law, the finder of such treasure is required to notify the top local official of the nature and amount or approximate value of such treasure and the place where it was found. The share of such treasure shall vest in Her Majesty if the finder fails to turn over the loot to the authorities. It's important to keep in mind that the British evacuated India in 1947, so the Her Majesty part doesn't really make sense, and it's kind of an antiquated law. Number 1. No PDA. You should be aware that public displays of affection are not permitted in India or when visiting the country. According to Section 294 of the Indian Penal Code, it is illegal to disturb bystanders through obscene conduct, and offenders risk up to 3 months in jail or a fine. The term obscene acts is not defined by law, although the police typically use it to target married couples. Public expressions of affection are typically viewed as offensive behavior. People in India should therefore look for other ways to express their love for their significant other, since public displays of affection might easily result in jail time. Makes me think about how many cops stop by a couple that's kissing and go, "Nuh-uh, you're coming with me."
Top 10 scary laws in Russia you should never break. Counting down from number 10, drinking in public places. The Russian government has made several attempts trying to reduce the excessive drinking habits of the country. There are strict regulations on the sale times for alcohol and restrictions on where you can drink. Public places are generally off limits to alcohol, and being caught can result in dealing with the police. The ingenuity of Russian people has, of course, led to elaborate ways of consuming alcohol, but there is always a chance of being caught and worth taking precautions. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom if you're looking to enjoy a drink or two. There are plenty of places where you can find a place to relax, have a chat, and enjoy a beverage. From hidden bars tucked away in back streets to cozy pubs and lively clubs with outdoor seating, there's something for everyone. So go ahead and explore the nightlife scene in Russia. Just make sure to stay safe and abide by the rules. Who knows? You might even get an insight into how Russians love their vodka. Cheers. Number 9, failing to show ID. Although the first idea that comes to mind is the conventional showing ID when getting into a club, here the situation is slightly different. Russian cities are often subject to random ID checks, usually in crowded places such as subways, public squares, etc. What the police are looking for are migrant workers without the proper permission to work. Failing to present any form of ID can result in a trip to the police station. Such checks are especially common with men, so carrying around a passport can help avoid unnecessary trouble. That being said, it's still important to be careful when flashing around your passport. Sure, you might think you look cool brandishing a passport like a VIP card, but don't forget that all of Russia is watching, police officers included. It's best to keep the passport out of sight and only present if absolutely necessary. After all, no one wants to become an internet meme for trying too hard. But in cases where flashing your passport is indeed necessary, make sure you do it with style and confidence, like a true Russian citizen. Be proud and remind everyone who's boss by simply presenting your ID without any hassle or drama. That way, they will know that you mean business and won't mess with you. Now, number 8 is a little crazy, but playing Pokemon Go. A fairly innocent activity that rapidly gained popularity around the world, causing players to get into accidents and detained for trespassing. In Russia, though, a player used the game to make a statement and raise awareness of the growing influence of the church in Russia. He recorded himself playing Pokemon Go inside of a church in Yekaterinburg, whilst chanting religious-sounding incantations with swearing. His actions fell under the law against insulting religious feelings, signed by Putin after the Pussy Riot trial. So catch them all, but not in Russian churches. It may be bad for your health. Needless to say, the incident in Yekaterinburg wasn't the only time playing Pokemon Go has gotten people into trouble. From players getting run over by cars while trying to catch a rare Pikachu to others who were arrested for trespassing or creating public disturbances, it's clear that playing Pokemon Go can easily take an unexpected turn. So if you want to preserve your liberties and not end up detained for catching them all, make sure you play responsibly and stay out of places where you shouldn't be. Otherwise, you might just find yourself singing religious incantations with Putin. Just like our poor friend from Yekaterinburg. Good luck, trainers. Number 7, writing letters to the government. A representative of the Open Russia movement was detained for collecting open letters to Putin from citizens of Kazan. The letters were requesting that the current president not run for another term in the upcoming elections in March 2018. While she was in the process of collecting the letters, the police took her away, after which she was sentenced to 10 days in prison. Her arrest was unexpected and thankfully did not affect the people who wrote letters, but it is still a warning to whomever wants to have a chat with Mr. President. Despite the obvious political implications of this incident, we can't help but laugh about it. After all, if you're a citizen in Kazan and you want to get your message across to Putin, why not just mail him directly? We should really be thankful that our friendly neighborhood police decided to take the letter collector away before she could post them on the Kremlin's doorstep. The irony of this whole event is hard to miss. Citizens of Kazan are being punished for not wanting their president to stay in office, when he hasn't even officially announced whether or not he plans on running for re-election yet. Talk about getting ahead of yourself. Number 6, smoking in public places. Battling smoking has been a recent aim of the government, and to be frank, their efforts have been successful. Smoking is now prohibited inside restaurants, bars, and nightclubs, so only the most determined smokers huddle outside in the Russian winter to get their fill of nicotine. But the lawmakers have gone further and have now forbidden smoking in the vicinity of many public places. The public places in question are universities, hospitals, government buildings, theaters, museums, stadiums, and stations, be it train or bus. Lawbreakers are approached, but the police request them to immediately extinguish their cigarettes and give them a moralistic chiding. Those who ignore the rules can easily be arrested and detained for up to 15 days. A high price to pay for persistently smoking a cigarette. On to number 5, bribes, receiving or giving. Corruption is still a major issue in Russia, requiring the constant attention of the government, but naturally it is a complicated situation, given that most bribes are received by the government. Ironic, right? Bribery is still present in police stations, hospitals, and many other public institutions. Giving a bribe used to be an easy way to avoid paperwork on a traffic fine or to skip the line for a doctor's appointment. As the crackdown continues, it is advisable to be very wary of offering bribes. The trouble resulting in such an offense can bring along many significant complications. That said, it's important to note that the situation in Russia is far from perfect. It's no secret that there are still many public institutions and officials who practice bribery, but the good news is that they don't get away with it anymore. The Russian government has taken a tough stance against corruption, and those caught taking or giving bribes will be severely punished. So if you ever find yourself in trouble with the law, remember, bribing your way out is not an option, and while it may seem like an easy solution at first, you'll likely end up with much bigger problems than you started off with. Just keep your hands clean and stay on the right side of the law. Number 4, painting Easter eggs. As we learned from above, it is not a good idea to meddle with the feelings of the religious community. Although this arrest was not officiated under the insulting religious feelings law, it did cause a public outcry. A group of Maltsev activists for a Russian politician under arrest decided to show their support by writing "Free Maltsev" on Easter eggs. The group was later brought to trial, resulting in a fine to the group's leader, Elena Blinova. A mild sentence, but perhaps best to refrain from such deviant Easter decorations. Number 3, joining peaceful protests. Peaceful or not, any form of public outcry, be it a meeting, a protest, or just a gathering, needs to be authorized. Without the proper permission to hold such an event, it's considered, yes, considered. It is considered illegal to be a part of it. Naturally, very few of these protests will receive such permission, since more often than not, they are aimed against the government. Moreover, notifying the authorities of the upcoming meeting can undermine the event altogether. So most protests are illegal, and any participants can be taken away and arrested, especially the leaders. But even bystanders can get caught, and the police aren't willing to listen to stories, of innocence, so it's best to stay clear of any such event that is quite common in today's Russia. A wise thing to do would be just to stay away unless you want to make a stand. Otherwise, it's better not to risk your safety and freedom for the sake of making a point. After all, the risks are too great. And if you really feel like engaging in some civil disobedience, there are plenty of online resources that can help you organize such activities safely and legally. Just remember, knowledge is power. So make sure to educate yourself before jumping into an illegal protest, otherwise you might regret it big time. Better safe than sorry. On to number 2, coming out as homosexual. Russia eradicated the direct law against homosexuality as far back as 1993, but despite that, the stigma has remained strikingly harsh in Russian society, especially by today's standards. The year 2013 brought about an anti-gay propaganda law that, although not directly targeting homosexuals, has still brought to the fore a discussion that has shown Russia to be a very backward-thinking country when it comes to sexual orientation. This law also allowed for free interpretation of what really is gay propaganda, leading to arrests of people holding hands or showing any other form of affection in public. A disturbing reality for Russia's gay community. Now, as the world progresses and more countries are recognizing same-sex marriage, Russia's still lagging behind. Even though the country has made strides to move away from its oppressive stance in homosexuals in recent years, there's still a long way to go before homosexuality is accepted in Russian society. A lot of people have tried to bring about change by introducing new legislation or by speaking out through protests and petitions, but it's not just up to them. The citizens of Russia need to be open-minded and willing to accept different lifestyles if they want real progress. So let's all help out our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ+ community by showing them we support their right for equality. After all, love is love no matter who it's between, and in this day and age, that's something we should all strive for. And finally, number 1. This one's a very bizarre one, posting on social media. The fight against internet extremism is very real. in Russia. Posting or reposting material falls under the law against public calls for extremism and for stirring feelings of hatred among the public, a crime very easily committed when not careful on social media, resulting in very real prison sentences. The law naturally targets the main social media platform in Russia, but of course other platforms do not guarantee complete safety. Moral of the story: reserve social media pages for holiday snaps and keep opinions to yourself if you don't want to be arrested.
Not really a tourist destination, huh? I'm your host Youssef, and these are 10 scary laws in North Korea you should never break. Make sure you subscribe and ring that bell to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Anyways, let's run the jewels. Number 10, no music. North Koreans are not allowed to listen to foreign music or watch foreign movies, as both are considered criminal activities. In 2015, the country's dictator Kim Jong-un decreed to destroy all cassette tapes and CDs that contained songs that the state had outlawed. The sentence depends on the location of the film's origin. Watching an American movie could result in execution, while watching an Indian movie could result in imprisonment. Furthermore, the distribution of adult films could lead to the execution penalty. In North Korea, there are only 3 TV channels, and the government controls all of the content. 2 of these stations are only available on weekends, while the other airs in the evenings. So no Taylor Swift for these people, unless she is singing about how great Kim Jong-un is. And still after that, probably not. Number 9, no calls. Making international calls is considered a crime in North Korea, so local citizens cannot make international calls or even to a foreigner in the country. All local SIM cards only allow calls within the nation. In 2007, a North Korean factory owner was executed by firing squad in front of 150,000 spectators after being charged with making international calls on 13 phones that he installed in a factory basement. Number 8, no Wi-Fi. North Korea has a portal to state-run propaganda, not the World Wide Web. Nevertheless, it is more of an intranet named Kwangmyong, not quite the internet. All foreign websites are blocked, and if you are not a high-ranking person, you will never be permitted to access them. In its most recent version, the native operating system Red Star has a Mac OS X-like feel to it. They say that it was done because of Kim Jong-un's fondness for Apple products. Wi-Fi is basically non-existent. Kwangmyong is not even accessible on mobile devices. Chinese tablets made for North Korea don't have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth components. They are just not required. Number 7, no Bibles. The Bible is seen as a representation of Western culture and is therefore forbidden because it can transform people. Although North Korea claims to have freedom of religious belief, thousands have been tormented for doing so. One Christian woman who was handing out Bibles was detained and executed. An American tourist in North Korea in 2014 with the name Jeffrey Fowle was detained and held for 5 months after he left his Bible in the restroom of an eatery at the Chongjin Sailors Club. Number 6, no haircuts. If you need a haircut, make sure to pick one of the 28 hairstyles that the government has approved. You heard that correctly. All men and women in North Korea are required to wear one of the 28 official hairstyles that the government has authorized, as all other hairstyles are forbidden in the nation. The government considers spiked hair to be defiant, so it is strictly prohibited. Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, introduced the legislation in 2013, but he did not include his own hairstyle in order to keep it distinctive. Number 5, no blasphemy. Under Kim Jong-un's rule, every North Korean must pledge allegiance and obedience to him, his family, and the government. Any act that could be a discernible affront to the Kim family by the North Korean administration is viewed as blasphemy and punishes offenders harshly. This holds true both for visitors and immigrants from North Korea. Anything that might be construed as a threat or offense will result in incarceration or even execution. Many are also acquainted with the story of Otto Warmbier, an American citizen and student who was detained at Pyongyang International Airport while waiting to leave the country after attempting to steal a billboard from his hotel room while visiting North Korea as part of a guided tour group. Warmbier was imprisoned, released in a vegetative condition, and passed away shortly thereafter in June 2017. Number 4. No leaving. You might be perplexed as to why North Koreans do not just escape in the face of such harsh laws. Well, it's because they can't. Citizens of North Korea are not allowed to leave the country, and frontier guards will shoot anyone who does so without official documents. For those who attempt to flee or hide from Kim's totalitarian control, the most severe punishment is almost always execution. However, travel limitations are also applicable within the country. You require permission in order to travel to see family in another town or hamlet. Number 3. Living in camps. In North Korea, it is believed that around 200,000 citizens are living in camps. They were detained for alleged political offenses. Every member of a person's family is interned if they perpetrate a political crime. A prisoner's entire family would be executed if he managed to escape. Malnutrition ends 40% of the inmates housed in these concentration camps. Many of them receive what appears to be fair sentences for hard labor, but they frequently end up working themselves until their demise. Number 2. No calling it North Korea. Tourists who visit North Korea should refer to the country as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or the DPRK. North Koreans prefer that you call their country by its official title, as this shows that you acknowledge the country's view of itself as the superior and legitimate Korean government. Surrounded by deep valleys and mountainous terrain, DPRK is one of the most isolated and notoriously secretive countries in the world. It welcomes only several thousands of visitors each year. Number 1. No jeans. Tourists cannot bring the following items into the DPRK: standalone GPS devices, adult content, drones, magazines, newspapers, religious texts, or any print or digital resources about North Korea or South Korea. Take note that if you do bring your mobile phone, you cannot make any international calls in North Korea, as we talked about earlier. Surprisingly, blue jeans aren't allowed into the country either. Denim jeans, which were invented by Jacob Davis and Levi Strauss in 1873, are considered to be a symbol of capitalist America. You can still wear black jeans, but you will be asked to change into more appropriate clothing when visiting the statues of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. Thanks for watching. Those were 10 terrifying laws you should never break in North Korea. Leave a like and comment if you think we missed anything, and we hope you have a scary day.